why my dentist keeps telling me to turn and cough. Every appointment I go. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are ready for the final leg of this lecture to talk about the Trojan War. Now, how do we know about the Trojan War? Well, most of the accounts of the Trojan War we know come from Homer, the Greek blind poet, and he wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey, which cover the Trojan War and also the journey of the Greek soldiers back to Greece from Troy. But he had a tragic life himself because he killed his dad and married his mother. Now let me explain. He was the son of King Laius and Queen Jocasta, and they heard a prophecy that their child, their son, would kill the dad and marry the mother. So they cast him away and told a shepherd to kill him. Now the shepherd couldn't bring himself to kill this child, so he gave him to King of Corinth. And so he was raised there. And when he became of age, he also learned that he was involved in this prophecy, though. That he would one day kill his dad and marry his mother. So he loved the King of Corinth and decided, I'm going to leave home so that way I don't have to worry about the prophecy. So he left home and made his way towards Thebes. And he encountered a strange old man there. They came to a four-way intersection, and this old man started shouting, saying it was his turn to go. And he said, Sonny, since I am on the right side, and I am in the clockwise position relative to you, I have the right of way. Now Homer was not happy, and keep in mind he wasn't a poet yet, so he responded, it's my turn or I'll kill you, bitch. And kill him he did. Homer went, thinking he had the right of way, and finally made his way to Thebes, who was under attack. Thebes was guarded by a sphinx who would eat people that could not solve her riddle. So Homer went up to the sphinx and said, tell me the riddle, I will solve it. And so the famous riddle, even used today, is what is the creature that walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 in the evening? Homer thought really hard, and after a couple of minutes he responded, well, that's easy. Well, my lady, that would be a lady of the streets. She crawls out of bed in the morning, completes the walk of shame in the afternoon, and returns to her pole at night. The Sphinx was so baffled that someone could solve the riddle, and so ashamed that it jumped off the cliff, and the people of Thebes celebrated, now liberated. And they elected to have Homer become the new king of Thebes and married the widow queen. After a few years, Homer heard that the king of Corinth had died, and he was so happy because if his father had died, well, then the prophecy couldn't be true. A year later, a shepherd revealed the truth, that the king of Corinth was only his adopted father, and that in fact, the strange old man that he killed at the intersection all those years ago was actually his true father, King Laius, and the widow queen, Queen Jocasta, was his real mother. So, Homer realized the prophecy was fulfilled. And this is how Homer became the blind poet. Because his mother/wife hung herself and died, and Homer, he ended up poking his eyes out in disgust. So that's why he became the blind poet, and the gods cursed him for the rest of his life. But he continued to write, and thankfully he did, because he told us all we know about the Trojan War. So what happened preceding the Trojan War? Well, it's the incident of the golden apple. You see, Eris, the goddess of discord, crashed a wedding that she wasn't invited to, and she was very not happy, to say the least. So she came up with a diabolical plot where she would bring a golden apple that she said belonged to the fairest of the gods, which started a 3-way battle between Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, each of who said that they were the fairest of the gods. So they asked Zeus, and Zeus showed infinite wisdom. When your wife asks you that and she's only a solid 6, he would do what other men would only wish they could think of and pass the buck onto someone else. So he would have a mortal decide instead of him, who was the best looking of the goddesses. They decided on Paris of Troy, a mortal who was shown to be fair, and he would decide who is the best looking of all of them. Which brings this poem called Greeks in Paris, which is a record of Paris saying that Troy so hard, since we here, it's only right that we be fair. An icon, I'm liable to go Mycon. Take your pick. Aphrodite, Hera, Athena, Game 6. And the 3 goddesses tried to bribe Paris, so they showed up naked. They each promised him something different. Hera promised immortality, Athena, infinite wisdom and military victories, and Aphrodite, she promised him the hottest chick in Greece, who happened to be Helen of Sparta. Now, this would be a 10-year war. But how did it become a war? Well, Helen of Sparta was really popular with the men. She had many suitors, and Menelaus would be the one who would be chosen as her suitor. But every rival swore to defend the upcoming marriage between Menelaus and Helen, that if anyone tried to dishonor them, they would go to arms, go to battle in their stead. So, when she was kidnapped and brought to Paris by Aphrodite, the Greeks went to war, having to fulfill their oaths. She said that she was the face that could launch 10 canoes. So I'm just going to go through the major players in the war. This can get really bogged down, but I'm just going to do a quick Spark Notes version. So for the gods that were on the Trojan side, Paris' side, Apollo, Artemis, Ars, of course Aphrodite, who Paris chose to go with. And there weren't really any heroes besides Hector. And the reason for that is the Trojans, they were very simple people. I mean, they were just farmers, hobbits, fishermen. So they didn't have a lot to do heroically, and that's why Hector was the one that kind of picked up the slack. On the Greek side, you had the gods Hera, Athena, Poseidon, Hermes, Hephaestus, Patsy, a whole other gang of gods here. But the Greek heroes were much bigger in number. In particular, Achilles, known as the mightiest warrior, along with Odysseus and some other heroes. So Poseidon would make waves to impede travel. Apollo and Athena would introduce plagues, monsters, and the gods figured out different ways to affect the war. Hephaestus the smith, of course, made armor and weapons, and Zeus did what he knew best, and he had sex with as many civilians as possible. That was the best way to approach the war in Zeus's mind. And of course you have Aphrodite and Ares fight on the battlefield for the Trojans. But let's talk about Achilles. Like I said, he was the greatest hero ever known, and he was named Achilles because he had the biggest Achilles tendon known to man. It was about 3 feet tall. So he had custom armor that had to be fashioned by Hephaestus, and I'll show you on this diagram. Look at how high his knees were, and then his Achilles tendon. Like I said, 3 feet. It allowed him to jump very, very high, about 20 feet, they say. Now, the Greeks had the advantage, and that boils down to having more heroes, especially Achilles. Aphrodite's children continue to almost die, so she keeps swooping in to save them. And, for example, Paris duels Menelaus for Helen of Troy. And Paris forms a circle around both of them and launches into a 45-minute monologue. He slates first, don't worry, but 44 minutes into this monologue, Menelaus just gets tired and stabs Paris. He was about to strike a killing blow, but once again, Aphrodite swooped in and saved Paris from dying. Meanwhile, Achilles has to take a break. Why? Well, at this point, it's been 9 years into the war, and he is overdue for his dental checkup. So, while he's gone, Hector is able to lay waste to Greece. While Achilles is getting his checkup, his friend Patroclus borrows his armor and weapons and tries to fight Hector. And Hector kills Patroclus immediately. Now, as soon as Achilles is done with getting 5 quads of SRP, he is enraged and confronts Hector. Hector, of course, knows that he has no chance that he's going to die, so he pleads with Achilles to respect him and bury his body honorably. But while he's doing this, he scuffs Achilles' sandals, and that is the last straw for Achilles. So he immediately kills Hector and drags his body around Troy 3 times and draws the ire of the gods. So, because of this, Apollo punishes Achilles and infects him with a plague. Now, this bacteria is very, very hard to get rid of. He doesn't respond well to his first set of antibiotics because Achilles has a penicillin allergy. So, they go down to the third line of antibiotics and they prescribe him ciprofloxacin. Now, ciprofloxacin is a fluoroquinolone, and what is very, very dangerous about these antibiotics is that they have a black box warning by the FDA. That means there is a big danger, and what it is that taking this can cause the Achilles tendon to rupture. All right? I want you guys to look this up online too, because it happens to a lot of people. But what happens when your Achilles tendon ruptures and it's 3 feet tall? Well, the creation of the Red Sea, unfortunately. 5 minutes after taking the antibiotic, Achilles has his tendon rupture. And you can see this account from Homer underneath here, that it was like an eruption. He died instantly, and there was so much blood that spurted out, it created the Red Sea. So the Greeks were very, very upset. They lost their greatest hero. They had to think of something to end this war. And so they came up with the wooden Trojan horse. What they would do was leave this horse outside for the Trojans to take as a token of victory. Now, keep in mind this graph I showed you earlier, that the Greeks were very, very short at that point in time. So, inside of this horse, 5,000 Greeks hid, and they waited until nightfall. And that's when Odysseus led an attack to completely destroy the Trojans and win the battle. So the war ends and Greece became the victors. However, on the way back, they suffer a terrible fate. This is detailed in the Odyssey, also written by Homer. I'm not going to get into it too much. That would be a completely different lecture. And you know what stinks is Helen of Troy. She already died. So this was pretty pointless meddling from the Greek gods that caused millions to die. So because they were so sad, all of Greece, including the Olympic gods, converted to Christianity. And there you go. That is your snapshot of ancient Greece through a couple of different lenses. If you want additional materials, please let me know. And for those of you joining in this lecture for the first time, in the comments, let me know if there's an area you want me to go into, a future lecture, a topic that interests you. If you have any questions, send me an email. But thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to the next time we can talk together. Remember, learning is power.